I figured it'd make sense for me to get back to a series I've kind of abandoned for a while, in Fancase Friday. At some point in time, I promise I'll try my hardest to make this a weekly thing, but for now there's nothing I can really do. It sort of just comes whenever I can conveniently record and upload. So as per usual, there's 3 fan cases we'll be looking at today. But before I do, I should probably establish what exactly I look for in a fan case and how I judge my overall enjoyment of them. For starters, I subjectively determine whether the case is designed to be taken seriously or as a joke. Unlike cases like Turnabout Storyteller, fan case creators make it relatively easy to me to tell whether the case is supposed to be taken seriously or just made for shits and giggles. In a fan case that isn't made to be taken seriously, I don't expect anything stellar in terms of writing. I just want to be made laugh to a certain extent, and to overall be able to say I enjoyed my time as a result. Conversely, with a more serious fan case, while I don't expect the writing to be as high standard as the Ace Attorney series, I look for the following. How is the mystery of the case? How well is the case paced? Am I having fun? Are the main characters written consistently with the series? While recent games would lead me to believe otherwise, I still hate that civil trial. Naturally, these cases can still have their fair share of fun and light-hearted moments. I'm not expecting anything unnecessarily edgy or serious. I'm looking at you. But I do hope for something interesting that compels me to keep on playing, and solve the case at hand. Now that that's been established, let's get on to the first case of the day, which unironically is called the Normal Turnabout. It's a simple case that for some reason begins with Apollo driving a car. Yeah, we got some more original art for this case, and that's always an extra 10 points. I understand that not everyone can create their own artwork for their own fan cases, but when you do, I really do appreciate the effort. It shows you took the time out to put an extra cherry on top of your work, and I appreciate that. Also, Apollo doesn't drive a car, he rides a bike, cause he's cool like that. So we're introduced to Juniper's mother, and she's not exactly what I expected. I expected more of a nice elderly lady than a cranky old bag. From how Juniper described her, I can't help but feel like this isn't what I expected. Oh, and Juniper's dead. Oh, not even lying about that one, she's legitimately dead. She got killed off. There she is, looking all melted, like a pot of glue. It's not that I don't want to care, but if there's one thing I'll give this fan case slack for, it's just how much it downplays Juniper's death, and that's coming from someone who isn't even fond of Juniper's character. She's supposedly Athena's best friend and has a crush on Apollo, so it certainly makes it seem like the death should have more meaning. But sadly it doesn't, and Apollo doesn't even care. The only person in this case that seems to is Juniper's grandmother, trying to pin the crime on Athena. Yes, admittedly I don't care much for the death of a character like Juniper, but it should have significant meaning to the characters, namely Apollo. This is the same guy that took a courtroom explosion and defends her twice in court. And for some reason all he has to say is, well, I didn't even know her. To me, that's the exact equivalent of Phoenix finding Mia's body in case 2, but then complaining about how she needs to change the curtains. I love the areas you get to examine though, and as far as I'm aware, this is one of the first times in the series where you get to investigate solely around someone's house. Again, it shows the person behind this put effort into the case, and I like that. It's very easy to just reuse old backgrounds and slap together a case. And I'm not gonna act like I wouldn't do the exact same thing. But seeing people actually go that extra mile puts a smile on my face. I think Apollo's a little bit out of character at certain points in the investigation, but it's nothing too major. I mean, it's not this, or this. It even has Clavia face off against Apollo again, and that's nice. And Clavia does nothing, cause that's nice. It's a simple trial that even has a mood matrix segment, and I think that's really cool. I know some people are probably rolling their eyes at me liking this inclusion, but again, it shows effort in my eyes, like going that extra mile. I mean, it feels just as forced as every other mood matrix segment in the series, so I'll give it props for consistency. But then E.T. the extra OC over here gets his chance to the stand. But he's pretty boring for obvious reasons I'll get into later. I do have a slight problem with this fan case though. So you know how earlier I talked about how I critique fan cases on whether they're made to make me laugh or to be taken seriously? Well, that's sort of an issue here. The Normal Turnabout knows where it wants to be, but it has a very serious murder, in the victim being Athena's best friend, and Apollo wanting to avenge Juniper. But the problem is, the case indirectly and very directly makes it clear that I'm not supposed to take this seriously. I know it sounds really petty, but it plays a factor in my overall enjoyment of the case. Because if the fan case wanted to be a wacky case with loads of fun, then the murder shouldn't have been of Juniper, even if no one really cares about her. That said, there's still tons of fun to be had during this trial, and you'll probably crack a smile or two during your first playthrough. But the ending really does drive home my point about the whole mood whiplash deal. And I got really stuck during the last testimony, so that didn't help. Seriously though, things get crazy, and I recommend just playing it for the ending. I can't stress enough that I presented the badge as a joke. But overall, it's still a pretty fun case that I recommend you check out. It's alright, but my major gripe is the writing of some of the characters and how downplayed the death of Juniper actually is. Though it's still something I recommend you check out. So up next is Turnabout Fake Difficulty. Now if my saves aren't enough to convince you, I'll just say it flat out. I don't like this case. There's no story, I assume I'm in hell because Dorley is here and this case is bloody impossible. If it isn't the vague statements that drove me up the wall, it was the fact that I got sent back to the beginning of the case for every mistake. Making progress not only a slog, but a waste of time. Listen, I was dead set on beating this case. I legitimately took time out of my day to beat this case. But if the footage I'm showing you isn't enough to convince you, then go ahead and play it. No, seriously, play it. Because I need someone to beat it so they can make a guide so I can actually beat this case. But so I don't lose my sanity, let's move on. We have a whole load of original art here and it all looks amazing. Seriously, this stuff is beautiful. Especially for something made for a fan case. It has a lot going for it in terms of visuals. And I can understand that this case isn't as wacky as the ones I've looked at before. So my standards are slightly higher. In all honesty, I haven't really grown much of an attachment to the nurses, even though they have great designs. I don't necessarily feel attachment to these characters, and I understand that it's only the first case, but they come off as two junipers. Anyway, the case begins with a cinematic cutscene of Apollo getting attacked. I'm getting some Dual Destinies vibes here. And what does Athena do when she finds out Apollo hasn't shown up for the trial? Well, naturally, she makes Trucy the defense attorney. Because that makes sense. Say what you want about Athena, but she'd be a lot more useful than Trucy in a trial. I understand that it's an excuse to make Trucy the defense attorney, but I feel as though the reasoning behind her doing it could have been slightly better. The execution feels a little sloppy. I mean, the idea of Trucy being a defense attorney kinda just feels like fanfiction in itself. Seriously, Spirit of Justice is probably getting jealous. Oh shit. Again, the sprites for this case are really well made. I like the way the character of Juniper is written as a judge. It feels very in touch with what I'd imagined Juniper as a judge would be like. Juniper's actually been getting a lot of shine recently. She died, and now she's come back as a judge. She's been accused of murdering her professor and blowing up a courtroom. Congratulations, Juniper. You're the Yamcha of the Ace Attorney universe.
Why bother wishing me back to life if I'm just gonna die again?
You said it, man. So what we do get here is Trucy filling in so she can defend her friend. A childhood friend. So that's interesting. I don't want to go into too many of the details of the case. This is only part one of a two-part case. It really has a large amount of effort put into it, and I think it has an interesting setup. The only problem I might have is how some of the characters talk to each other. I can understand the occasional mistake, but I still think the characters talk a little too casually to each other. But Trucy does get flagged for it, so I can't really complain. It's an interesting concept, especially the idea of Trucy being a defense attorney. It's taking a character we know and trying to do something different with them outside their role in the series. So I'll give it extra points for that. Nursing Turnabout 1, Spirit of Justice 0. It almost felt like with Maya they just kind of got a checkbox and said, hey, what does Maya do? I think we did it, boys. The thing with this case is, it has a lot of reasons to work, but I feel as though this should have been an OC. Trucy doesn't really have much reason to be the defense attorney of this case, and to be blunt, she doesn't really work as a protagonist. She's always been designed to be a side character, in the supporting role. If there's any advice I could give to the creators of this fan case, it would be to make Athena or another character the main protagonist. It feels a bit too forced to make Trucy the main lawyer. And if you still do wish to pursue that, that's cool, but I feel like you should justify it slightly better. But seriously, if you've ever been curious to see what it'd be like to play as Trucy in a courtroom setting, seriously, I recommend you give this case a look. But yeah, that's all I have for this week. Or month. It sort of depends on how often I decide to do these things. Anyway, thank you guys as always for watching, and if you want to see my previous video on Fancase Friday, the link will be in the description below. I want to give a special thank you to everyone making these fan cases and sending them to me to check them out. As always, thank you guys for watching, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. I'm TheStoryteller and I'll see you around.